why did I create CommonGround? One of the big reasons I created it is because I linked up with Bob Drake in around 2005, and he was getting more and more interested in what I was up to. And I went up to the Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center, which is probably one of the epicenters on the planet for shared decision-making. They're doing some extraordinary work around shared decision-making. And at the Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center, when you walk in, it's a beautiful new building and all natural sunlight, and it looks like you're in a little village on the first floor with shop signs in this grand foyer of the medical center. And one of the signs says Shared Decision-Making Center. And I went in, and I got to see this thing that I had never heard of before, this extraordinary thing. And what they showed me, I was greeted by the woman you see here, Kate, and they talked to me about how shared decision-making worked. And what I learned was, in the first picture, you see a woman who is with her oncologist, and she's just been diagnosed with breast cancer. What happens next is that the oncologist does not say, so I recommend a mastectomy. That's not what happens at the Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center. What happens is she leaves the oncologist's office, newly diagnosed, and heads directly downstairs to the Center for Shared Decision-Making. And at the center, she and a family member view a decision aid, in this case a video, that tells her about the type of cancer that she has, tells her what her treatment options are, and the relative efficacy of those options, and asks her about what matters to her in terms of, breast preservation or not, what matters in her life. So it puts the evidence with her values, and she's able to arrive at a sense, she's now ready to go back to the oncologist. She knows more, she has a sense of what she wants, and she begins to talk about that with the oncologist. And together, the oncologist and this woman arrive at a shared decision about the next steps in treatment together and proceed from there. And when I saw that, I said, I want that. If I should ever be diagnosed with breast cancer, this is what I want. This is what I want. And I know you must be sitting there saying the same thing. That you want a chance to participate in making the best decision for you about what's right for your care. The oncologist knows what works for large population samples, as reflected in statistics. The oncologist does not know what's right for me. Okay? So I like to say that decisions about treatment are not just medical decisions. Decisions about treatment are also personal decisions. And if ever there was a poster child for preference-sensitive care, it is in the field of behavioral health. We have medications which can be fabulous supports for recovery, but these medications are not just benign. They have quite a bit of variance in terms of the risk that are associated with using it. And it is not a psychiatrist's place. And I would argue that our psychiatrists would agree that they don't want to say, hey, I recommend a medication that has a higher likelihood of diabetes versus one that has a higher likelihood of tardive dyskinesia. That's not a clinician's choice. That's got to be a participatory, shared decision. And that's what CommonGround is about, and that's why I created CommonGround. And so we see in healthcare a trend, and it's a very exciting trend, of the field beginning to adopt shared decision-making on a larger and larger scale. And it's almost like watching a snowball really beginning to gain momentum. And there's no doubt that it began in physical health care, okay, around what are called crossroads decisions. And what we know is that when shared decision-making is used in medical settings, it is actually perfected informed consent. It reduces unwanted variations in care. It reduces health care costs for certain medical conditions. It aligns care with patients' values. It helps physicians avoid preference misdiagnosis. There's a good body of literature that shows that surgeons tend to recommend surgery, for instance. Okay, and often there's a growing body of literature that tells us that docs, like other clinicians, are not great at predicting, for instance, a woman's preference with regard to treatment of breast cancer. They often get that diagnosis of preference wrong. So we want to see a reduction in preference-based misdiagnosis, and we want to include people in this decision-making process. And I want to say that those of us gathered in this room today are the pioneers who are taking shared decision-making and its growing momentum as a standard of care and migrating it into behavioral health. We are the ones that are doing that. That is historic. That is a really, really big thing to be proud of, that we are leading that charge. And we do see in the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act increasing language. That in the Affordable Care Act, it says that programs that will qualify for payments are going to have to be able to show a creation of decision aids to engage patients in informed decision-making with healthcare providers. And they call that a program to facilitate shared decision-making. Accountable care organizations, there are language in emerging regulations that are saying that accountable care organizations must communicate clinical knowledge in a way that is understandable and engage in shared decision-making. I didn't write this slide. I took it right out of the legislation. Now, what we're still waiting for is we want to see some big money streams attached to these mandates. That's where the teeth are going to come. There are some associated with accountable care organizations already, and that's a good thing.